I am starting this because everybody involved with Enter the Mind Dungeon that I was seeing and speaking with and interacting with on for the past 4 months or so, I've rarely, if at all, spoken with any of you. So I was like, I'm going to reach out to everyone on an individual basis. Shit, what if I just record it and ask them some silly questions and call it a podcast? And that's Influence and Homage. I'm here with Abie Ekenezar. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Thanks for joining us. Abie is an actor, producer, writer, filmmaker. Anything else you want to throw in there?
I'm on the board of a number of different outlets here. The Seattle Film Task Force, based in Seattle, obviously, is all about bringing inclusivity and diversity to the Seattle production community. I'm also on the board of Women in Film, which is a community based on women filmmakers. I'm also on the board of the Fantasy Network, which is a fantasy and science fiction based streaming service that is a production of Zombie Orpheus Entertainment. I have my own production company called Babsack Productions, and we mainly create speculative fiction based stories that have to do with people of color. I have a project, hopefully, that should be filmed next year. It's literally been in pre-production for 1.5 years now because of COVID. But it's a collection of stories from POC writers, screenwriters, with a theme of the amazing writer Octavia Butler, who was a speculative fiction writer right here in the Washington area, who passed away in 2008. And she had this beautiful influence on so many people that I know and myself, while growing up. And so I didn't want to do one of her stories. I wanted to try to bring up some of the other stories that I know that so many people write that have her connotations involved in it.
It sounds like you got your hands in a lot of pots there, as it were. When did you know that you wanted to do this thing that you do?
Always wanted to act. I was in secondary school when I was in my first play, and I didn't get the part of the main person, and I was really upset and determined that from now on I was going to do my best to do everything that I could to be the main person, right? And so as I graduated and I did other things like joining the Navy, I realized that different components in my life always involved performance, right? So when I was in the Navy, I was in a group called the Performing Unit where, we sang the national anthem at different games, right? This was out in Pensacola, Florida. And as that traversed, I, decided that when I was getting off of active duty, I wanted to do more. I just didn't know what I wanted to do and how to go about it. It wasn't until about 4 years ago that I had decided that I wanted to get into writing because I was getting really sick and tired of playing the same roles over and over again that literally had nothing to do with how I grew up. Being a gangster or a drug addict or some kind of stereotypical, thing. It just drove me absolutely insane. And I was telling another filmmaker friend about it, and she was like, "Shut up." And I was like, "What?" She's like, if you're this, why don't you go do something about it? And I was like, I will.
Challenge accepted.
Maybe. I wanted to tell more stories about people of color, and that's why I started the production company, because I didn't see any that were around, that were doing the same thing, which I thought was really, really frustrating. And that's why I'm fortunate with Zombie Orpheus, is because they're for that. And starting a partnership with them, I have only, and it was something that I wrote, and it was a short. So getting a chance to actually co-direct a feature, I'm kind of freaking out. I never wanted to direct before, but I feel like it's a path that most actors actually follow anyway.
Right.
So I would definitely love to be able to help also tell stories through a lens, do better if the writing is shitty.
Right. Well, so I think a lot of that is awesome that you're getting into the producing side of things, into creating content and whatnot. I have noticed, like, from my perspective, in casting, for a while now, I've been trying to make sure that I include people of color into the projects that I'm making. But it has actually been a little difficult when we put out like casting calls and stuff like that. We're having trouble, finding people of color to fill these roles sometimes. And I know that, this is the Pacific Northwest, and it's somewhat homogenous for the most part, and it makes finding people of color to fill these roles sometimes difficult. And I think one of the bigger challenges that we faced, from my team, is that we're Olympia based, which makes it even harder because Tacoma, Seattle is more where you're going to find more diverse people than you're in Olympia.
Absolutely.
So I think it's good that you're doing this, and you're getting it. You're getting it out there and telling stories from your perspective and whatnot, provided that we don't have to take to the streets to reclaim our country in January. What sort of things do you see yourself doing in the next 10 years?
Kind of want to leave my adult job, right?
Right, me too.
And be able to like have my production company in full swing and, focus on those stories and not have to focus on trying to split my life into right now, which is what I've been doing.
Yeah, I hear you there. I've been, full-time job, but you still got to make time for art. It's
hard though when you're trying to do both, right?
It's very hard. And that's the culture we live in right now. So
yeah.
So I think that it's important for you to do the thing even if you don't get paid for it.
Yeah.
I think that's clear. So why is it important for you to do the thing?
The whole conversation that we've been having is literally the reason why people are represented a certain kind of way is because that's what Hollywood has provided. Unfortunately, we do not have the same money as Hollywood. And so I want to make stories as much as I possibly can, even if I don't have money to make those stories, because I feel like there is this untapped potential of viewing humans the same way, right? We're used to seeing people of color in this negatory sense, right? In our past, right? And unfortunately that's still been ingrained in us. So everything that I can do to support the initiative of seeing people of color as gamers, as, dungeon masters, as major massive convention goers or nerds or, whatever I possibly can do, I'm going to put my hand and foot into all of it and make sure that, those are getting publicized so people can see that, because it's very important. Like the problem is that even if we have people that are out there that are making stories, those stories aren't getting seen. So the more stories that we make, the more easy it would be, or the easier it would be for those stories to actually finally start being seen. And so I keep doing the thing so that the thing can be seen, right. Honestly.
This is one that I think is important because more and more, and this is at the Hollywood tier, of course.
Yeah.
But more and more I see actors, and I don't want to name names, although I really want to name names, but there's a lot of actors that are basically the children of billionaires or millionaires. And some of them even that I love, like Kimmy Schmidt. I love Kimmy Schmidt, but Ellie Kemper, like her parents are millionaires, if not billionaires. The Maras, Kate and Rooney Mara, their dad owns the New York Giants. Nick Kroll, his dad's a billionaire as well. And it's everywhere. And I was reading a lot of things about it, and apparently, so here's my question. I'll just get to it. Are you worried that art is again becoming the purview of the wealthy, that lower income and middle class folks are too busy working to survive to be able to afford the classes, lessons, education, equipment, training, etc., to become competent enough artists that they're hireable for their work? Are you worried that this diminishes the access of poor voices to the means of expression? Wow, that's a mouthful.
So I was thinking about that, right? And you know, with some of the initiatives that we've got going on right now, I feel like we are, or at least the Seattle area film community, or Pacific Northwest in general, is trying to do everything that they can to go in the direction where these unrecognizable voices that never got a chance to have a voice before are actually becoming more prevalent. You have those people that have tons of money, right? And, they're making movies the way that they want to, but the world is literally speaking out on that, right? I don't know if you saw my timeline about Scarlett Johansson and playing every single person of color role and queer role in the world. And everyone was just like, oh my God, I can't wait to see her as Bruce Lee.
I lolled at that. It was pretty funny. I think I got it.
But it's literally the fact that people are knowing and seeing that that was what was happening before, and they're speaking out against it. And they're like, no, it is not okay. Stop doing the shit, because we're going to hold you accountable. And they're actually trying to do everything that they can to support those voices that are not usually heard, like the lower income voices that don't have the opportunities that the rich do every single day, right? And so it's the same thing as these millionaires and these social elitists and these Instagram models and stuff like that. These people make money off of the way that they look or the status of their family. No it anymore. People are actually pulling from those communities that are underrepresented and asking those people to be a part of bigger pictures. And I seriously can't wait until the future changes, because I feel like it's happening. It's slow, and I wish it was, but it's finally actually happening.
I mean, I know that I've come face to face with it when I've been casting, when I have to choose between a couple of different actors. And one of the actors, hands down, they've got the training and the technique that they fall back on, that I'm like, this is, for me as the writer and the director and the producer, this person is the clear choice just because they have the skills. But then you start to realize that at a certain point, the ability to acquire those skills comes from a place of privilege, because I was personally never in a position to be able to say I'm going to college to learn how to act.
Yeah.
I had to turn wrenches, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To pay my rent. That's life.
Juilliard, right?
Right.
And they have that background and training in performing arts, but then you have this person from this community that has never had any kind of training, and they just hands. I actually talked to an amazing friend of mine who produces a lot of theater shows in the area, telling me how there's this one show that he was producing over at the Renton Civic Center, and there was this kid, who'd never been in a musical before. And he asked the kid, he's like, well, so why exactly do you want to do this if you have no experience? And he's like, well, I watched this one musical and I absolutely fell in love with, and from that point on, I've just wanted to do musicals.
Right.
And he cast him. Right? He didn't have a main scene at first. Obviously, as he, did more shows, he was able to become a principal. But, that first show that he got a chance to do, he worked his butt off apparently, and danced and sang his heart out. And that was determination. And that's what was important, is that, even though you have these people who don't have the opportunities to go and learn things because they either don't have the money, they don't have the social standing to do it, or they just, don't have the means of doing it, they still need to be represented.
Right.
Need to find a way to give them a chance, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I started the production company is
nice.
Because of that.
Right. Yeah. The ability to really pursue an artistic field as a career is is a freedom. It's a, it's a privilege. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't have it. And I think that that's our culture, right? I mean, our
Yeah.
culture doesn't, and our economic system doesn't allow for that, because we don't have the freedom to throw caution to the wind and go after what we want. We have
Yeah.
to keep a roof over the head. We have to keep food in bellies and whatnot.
That's why they call them the grown-up jobs, right? Is
Oh, right.
because
Yeah, exactly.
to do them, you kind of have to be a grown-up and not be able to do anything else that you want to do.
Right. And I mean, that's one of the, I didn't want to stray too much into like politics
Yeah.
and all that, but that's like one of the Star Trek, visions of the universal basic income, and that everybody has healthcare and housing, so that you are free to pursue whatever kind of career you want to pursue. And then the counterpoint argument to that is, well, people would be lazy. And I'm like, yeah, like less than 1% of the people would be lazy. Like 99% of people want to do something.
Absolutely.
I hate the idea that people just want to sit around and do nothing. It's like, yeah, you know what? If the price of everybody having the freedom of healthcare, housing, universal basic income is that 5% of the people play video games and smoke pot all day, that's a price worth paying for everybody to be able to do what they want to do, I think.
Yeah.
So, Abie, let's talk about the weather.
Sure.
What's one thing that you would want people to know about you that we haven't already covered?
I love karaoke.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm actually in a karaoke league.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it used to be. Not so much anymore.
Oh, right. I guess it's kind of on hiatus.
Yeah, at least until, bars open up again. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, when it's back, it's going to be back with a vengeance.
Oh yeah, and I've already have a collection of songs that I've got ready.
Nice.
Right? I've been trying to keep my voice up.
So tell me about an unpopular opinion that you hold.
I do not like Beyonce.
Okay.
Not a fan of hers. And it's so crazy because there's this UK sketch comedy skit that was done about this woman in this office space who literally said that, right? And they excommunicated her from the community, sent her out into the woods so she'd live a life alone with all the people who got excommunicated. And then she meets this one guy who was excommunicated also for I don't even remember why he was excommunicated, but she
Nickelback or something.
Probably, yeah, I think.
Right.
And she told him also that she didn't like Beyonce, and he was like, "You fucking what?" and I feel like if I tell people, I'm gonna get kicked out of the community.
That's hilarious. So I don't like Beyonce's music, but I don't like pop music. So I don't really listen. I don't like Taylor Swift. Katy Perry. I don't like pop music. So I know that Beyonce is objectively great, but I'm just I'm not into the music or anything. So
yeah, definitely my unpopular.
Yeah, I keep my thoughts about Beyonce to myself because I'm I understand the culture. You don't talk bad about Beyonce. I get that, and I don't have anything bad to say about Beyonce. I'm meh,
Yeah, I feel literally the same. I have no urge to go and get her album right away or anything. Or see her new video or whatever, just not interested at all. I just don't like her music. I don't. Yeah.
I have friends that are like me, 42-year-old nerdy white guys that sing all the single ladies, not ironically, when we're out at bars, and they do the, they do the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm okay, I get it. I get that she's a cultural phenomenon. I understand. I'm just it kind of missed me,
Yeah, right, exactly.
All right, cool. Do the vibrations that make you continue on in some capacity after your body functions cease, or is that the end of Abie?
Nope. I absolutely feel like my entity or whatever that is representative of me continues off into the universe somewhere. Obviously, I have no idea where because there's no finality when it comes to our finite bodies or our auras. But I do feel like I will not stop as an entity. I couldn't. You know, there's just, I don't think that my spirit would let me stop, at least.
Okay. So let's talk about our thing, the thing that we did together.
Yeah.
My girlfriend Hazel says I don't scream in my sleep anymore.
No, I did not say that.
Progress.
She absolutely screams in her sleep. You want to talk about druids? I live with a druid. I live with a crazy-ass druid that brings random bits of foliage into bed with us. The girl needs help.
So we first met and worked together on Enter the Mind Dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, so these, we only shot together one day, huh?
We only shot together one day, but I felt like it was a lasting relationship with the crew. And I made them laugh, and that was my whole point of being on set, and I was very happy for the opportunity to. Because I've never worked with you guys before, and it was nice to know that there were other productions out there that were doing game-related style shows or, fantasy-related style stuff. Right? In the film community here, most of what you see is rom-coms or, serious Tom Skerritt starring in, type stuff. And so it's always nice to find other people that are in that same community that you're in, because there's so few of us, right? So I was really happy that, Sabrina had brought me in, or even talked about it, and just was glad that I got the opportunity to shout about Axe body spray.
You need material components to cast certain spells.
Couldn't you just use lavender, sage?
Hey! She knows how to cast her spells.
Sorry, I just thought...
Thought what? Are you a druid now? A botanist? A mental health professional? She didn't tell you how to put on your Axe body spray, so how about you don't tell her how to cast her own damn spells?
Sages for noobs.
Thank you. There's nothing wrong with Axe body spray. A lot of people wear it.
That's right. That was improvised too, I remember.
Yes, it was.
All off the cuff. And that's like I was saying before, one of my favorite things about filmmaking is that, none of that was written, but I felt that the attitudes of the two characters were kind of molded in very rough clay.
Yeah.
Which gave you the freedom to put the fine detail on there. And James, who played the interviewer, kind of did the same thing. That character was very rough. And he did all the work in molding that character. And the way that the two of you went together and just played off of each other was phenomenal.
It was, I love him so much.
Yeah, no, he's great. I'm actually interviewing him next.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's that actor that I aspire to always have on set with me, right? Someone who, because I've been in that experience where I've tried to play off of other people and they're just too serious and they just won't, and it sucks because we're such a small community. It's about making sure that you're having fun and then creating something that might be used that is probably better than what was written. Right. So yeah, it kind of made me super excited to be a part of the production just because everyone on the production team was just freaking phenomenal to work with.
Well, thank you for saying so. And we were delighted to have you aboard as well.
Thank you.
When Sabrina told me, she said that after we had posted, I think, a couple of clips, she said that you hit her up and said you wanted to be involved. And I was like, well, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about process and practice. And we probably kind of touched on a lot of this stuff through our conversation tonight. Mm-hmm. But when are you at your most, filling the room as an artist, when your training and passion and the material all kind of come together in a synergy to put you into a state where you feel like something divine is being channeled through you?
Yeah. So when I'm procrastinating, usually is when I'm the most creative. Usually when I finish doing something, usually when I have like a couple of hours left, that's when I spit out beauty, absolute pure gorgeousness. And I never know how I do it. And I keep telling myself that procrastination is wrong. It's so wrong. And you shouldn't do it because not everyone can procrastinate. But usually when I am procrastinating is absolutely when I spit out masterpieces.
You thrive under the pressure of a deadline, I think is what that is. Because I think I'm the same way. Like if I have a project that's due in 2 weeks, I'm like, every day for 13 days, I'll look at it and be like, I got time for this tomorrow, until it gets to the point where I'm like, oh, this is due tomorrow. And then marathon session, chemicals in the brain are flowing and hormones are happening and magic is created.
Writer's room locked away. You're not allowed to do anything for the next 2 or 3 hours. You want to eat? Finish your story.
Right. No researching. Disable the internet.
Yep. Absolutely.
Research later. Talent or skill? This is I don't know if this is a debate, but this is a thing that I like to think about from time to time, because I think a skill is something that is trained and learned.
Yep.
Talent is a natural ability.
Yep.
Which is it?
It has to be a combination of both. And people can, I feel like the only way that people are decent when it comes to portraying emotions is if they have an innate talent to be able to do that. Now, once you have that talent, you have to do everything that you can to craft it, right? And that's where education and workshops and honing, comes into play. And that is a skill that's learned over time. Even the world's greatest actors are still in school. They're all doing everything that they possibly can to hone their gifts and their abilities, as much as possible, or even passing that knowledge down to somebody else, whilst the same time learning themselves. So I can't say that anyone just has a natural, that anyone can just do anything unless they have it, but that talent can only go so far if you're not doing anything with it, if you're not trying to cultivate it as much as possible. So yeah, it has to be both.
Right. No, that's great. I think I agree with you like 100%. And I think a third thing comes into play, and that's aptitude. And I think what aptitude is that talent that without nurturing it and teaching yourself with education and to improve it to turn it into a skill and improve it, it doesn't go anywhere. It can just stay at the same level. I have a talent that stayed at the same level because I never worked to improve it, to turn it into a craft. As it were. So I think I'm with you there. Let's go to influence and homage.
Sure.
Tell me about a piece of art that touched you and changed the way you look at the world.
Anything that is made by Thomas Kinkade. His art form is ethereal and just so natural that anytime I see a painting that has been done by him, I always feel I'm at home. Or, I feel like this, overcome with happiness and light, fluffy clouds or something.
There's a warmth to his work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is so beautiful. I don't know really many other painters that were like him at that time. And so I'm absolutely appreciative of his paint style. It is a calming force that I absolutely love. And that's one of the reasons why he'll always be one of my favorite painters.
Okay. That's really awesome. I'm looking through a bunch of his paintings right now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like his paintings bring visual life to the way the Lord of the Rings looked in my head when I read it.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Or The Hobbit, at least. All right, so let's hear, Abie, 3 artists that influenced you the most.
Oh my goodness. Okay, these are going to be probably always the same, but Viola Davis, Ava DuVernay, and Octavia Butler. Ava DuVernay on the directorial side, obviously, Octavia Butler on the writing side, and Viola Davis on the acting side, which are all 3 different aspects of my life. So,
writing, acting, and directing. Do you have a favorite work from any of them that you want to talk about?
Ava DuVernay, When They See Us, because it's more about, compared to like some of the other stuff that she did, like How to Get Away with Murder and Scandal, which is all about, women of color getting into trouble. When They See Us is about, boys who were wrongly convicted, and then got their due justice, obviously, years later. But, it's so powerful, and it took me so long to watch it because it was so hard to watch. It's one of those pieces that will always speak to me no matter what. And I'm so glad that, she was a part of that process. Octavia Butler, Kindred. It's about this woman who gets, who has this link to her ancestors, or an ancestor that lived during slavery time. And she gets transported during those times. And it's like, what if you, as a person living in, the future, living now, were transported back to slavery? How would you feel? How would you react? What would you do? If you were in those same circumstances that, people, years ago, not even that long, but years ago,
right.
Had to deal with. And, it was crazy, like seeing the things that this woman went through and, realizing that if you were in that same situation, you would probably do exactly the same thing.
Right.
Right. And then, Viola, all of her stuff right. is great. But I think my most favorite one would probably be, I don't know if you saw the movie. I want to say it's like Housewives Club or Wives Club. And it's when she was married to Liam Neeson. But it was the first time that you see a dark-skinned woman and a white man on television in bed together, right? Blatantly in bed together. And it caused so much of an uproar, saying that a woman of her skin tone could never be with a guy like that. It's
Which
just
is absurd.
Disgusting. Absolutely. And this was like last year. So, I mean, they both have their own caliber of acting, and then seeing them together was just absolutely the most astounding thing I've ever seen. And, I hope that there are more movies that are made that are like that, where you have people from completely different spectrums, of the rainbow, right. put together in a film.
Do you have a favorite story?
I would probably have to say When My Kid Was Born is my favorite.
Okay, that's cool.
Apparently my mom told me that I told her that I was so drugged up that I told her I loved her. And she thought that was really weird. And then the doctors were saying that I was singing Nelly Furtado, I'm Like a Bird. They were like, oh, she's secured up. So probably like the most hilarious moment in my life was giving birth to my kid. Being on lots of drugs, because they gave me 3 epidurals.
Oh my goodness.
Because apparently the first one didn't take.
Okay. All right, Abie, I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me, seriously.
I appreciate it, and hopefully we get through this. And hopefully we get through this pandemic, and hopefully we still have a country, and we can keep making movies.
I know, exactly. That's what I'm absolutely hopeful for. So, all I can say is we'll see what happens come this fall. And if not, then we'll be marching out in the streets.
Right, yeah. And I think that kind of what we saw in Portland a few weeks back with the feds there and the mm-hmm. response to that leaves me a little optimistic that if there's any shenanigans, it's not gonna
fly. Not here.
It ain't gonna fly.
Not here.